Hello, everybody. In case anybody doesn't know who I am, my name is Dominique Gibson, and I am the author of a paranormal romance series called the Tucson SET series. And I am also the author of two nonfiction books called The Gibson Newsletter 2019 and 2020, A Year in Review. So, I am the author of Enormous Revenge, part of the Tucson SET series, which is a series of paranormal romances that is created by Ms. Dominique Gibson herself. This is the first book, Enormous Revenge. Second book, Enormous Faith. The third book, Enormous Allegiance, which will be out sometime this year. I will keep you posted on that. And Courtney's Redemption, which will also be, my goal is to actually publish it this time, later this year. Keep you posted on that. And this is the Gibson Newsletter 2019, A Year in Review. This was actually my proof copy, but the Gibson Newsletter is out. And that is specifically available on Amazon, while Enormous Faith and Enormous Revenge are both available on Amazon and other online retail stores everywhere. I'll be sure to post a link down below so that you'll be able to come to my website, which is DominiqueGibsonAuthor.com, in order to purchase your books, or I will include all the links below on where you can also buy the books without going to my website as well. So, I created this introductory video to tell you a little bit about who I am as an author and why I created this video and how I initially got here. So this book right here, Enormous Revenge, I initially started writing this book back in 2009. It was originally a young adult paranormal romance that I was inspired to write by the wonderful YA series Twilight by Stephanie Meyer and the wonderful TV show Vampire Diaries. Have not gotten around to reading the books yet. That will be on my to-do list for later on this year. But I was in love with the TV show created by the book series by L.J. Smith. And I knew that my inspiration for writing these books wasn't to actually write the stories that I was actually reading. AKA, I didn't want to write the same story that I was reading about. I wanted to write something that was a little bit different, that was still in the paranormal realm, but was a little bit different in terms of vampires and werewolves. It still has shapeshifters in it. It's just not your typical shapeshifters. With Enormous Revenge, Enormous Fate, Enormous Allegiance, which I call the Ormans trilogy. So there's 3 to 4 books in each set of the Tucson SET series, because basically the series is based on everything happens is centered around either the island of Tucson, or it basically involves the same characters in different places. But it's all part of this one ever-going series. And in this big series, there's a set of 3 to 4 different books within this big series. So the Ormans Revenge, Ormans Faith, and Ormans Allegiance will be one set. It'll be a trilogy. And after that trilogy with all those characters, it'll be no more. So books 1, 2, and 3, Ormans Revenge, Ormans Fate, and an Ormans trilogy, which is coming out very, very soon. That'll be Ormans Allegiance, will be the last book of the Ormans. And then after that, we're going to go to Freeman's Cove, and we're going to talk about the Freemans. But it'll still be all under the Tucson SET series umbrella. I hope that makes sense. If not, you can leave a comment saying that you want me to explain it further. That's fine. So anyway, back to the story that I was talking about. So this was back in 2009 when Twilight was all the crave and the movies or whatever came out and whatnot. And I really wanted to write a story about a paranormal. I wanted to write a paranormal story, but I did not want to write exactly what was splashed in like the media and the movies and all that stuff. So I didn't want to write exactly like Stephanie Meyer or exactly like L.J. Smith. I was just inspired enough that I wanted to write my own story that was totally different from vampires and werewolves. So in 2009, I was really inspired by I don't know necessarily if this happened in 2009. It might not have, but I think it did. I was inspired by this trainer at SeaWorld. And yes, it's a very tragic story, but there's a point that I'm trying to get across. So there was this story about this trainer at SeaWorld who was doing a show with this orca, and in the midst of it, something went horribly wrong. And the orca, she was in the water, and the orca pulled on her tail and kept pinning her underneath the water. So it kept pinning her underneath the water, and it got to a point where they pinned her, the orca pinned her so many times that she ended up drowning in the water, and she unfortunately passed away. Hearing about that story made me realize that a lot of people think that, oh, the orca was bad for doing that. You should just lay the orca down and things along that nature. And I really got inspired by that story because, in a way, I kind of wanted people to actually become aware of how wild animals act, do things in certain ways. So looking from that perspective, I couldn't say I blame the orca for what happened because I don't think that orca was aware of what he was, either he wasn't aware of what he was doing or he was aware of what he was doing, but it was just a simple fact that it was in his nature to do that type of act, and unfortunately somebody lost their lives in the midst of it. So that tragedy, along with my inspiration from these books that I was reading, kind of smashed together. And what ended up happening was I created the YA version of Enormous Revenge. I even remember the title of it. It was, technically it was supposed to be called The Electric Eel Bandit, because of the fact that the enemy was the electric eels versus the orcas, and it was just crazy. At first I had like talking animals and the whole 9 yards, and that first draft literally like sucked. And I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work because if I'm trying to do a young adult, that's a completely different animal. If it was a picture book, then yeah, you can have talking animals, but this was not a picture book, it was a young adult, so I needed to switch things up. So I began my research looking at orcas and things like that and how they communicate, and I thought of this brilliant idea. I said, well, first the question was, well, if these characters are in this orca form, well, they are shapeshifters, so if they're in their orca form, how will they communicate without turning back into their human counterparts? So I did some research and I thought, well, they can do it telepathically, right? Because of the fact that I think that's what they would do in real life. In real life, they communicate telepathically. Dolphins do it, orcas do it. Not so sure about sharks. I need to look that one up. But in actuality, if they're in pods, they communicate with each other that way. So slowly but surely in the midst of it, I started revising, reworking the story. There was, at one point, I had like multiple drafts. I had like 5 or 6 different drafts of this YA, this young adult paranormal romance that I was just so passionate about. So after a certain amount of rewrites, I sent it out to the world, the traditional publishing world, and unfortunately, they didn't want it. Kept getting rejection letter saying, this doesn't fit our guidelines. Thank you so much for submitting. And that was it. I actually got one good one that said that it wasn't within their guidelines. Thank you for submitting, but if I had another project that was besides the one that I was writing about, that they would consider my work in the future. But I decided that I really wanted to stick with this story. But instead of it being a young adult, I decided to change it to just an adult paranormal romance. So I said this is going to require me to just rip up the whole idea of the young adult paranormal romance, rip up the plot, everything, start all over again. And that's what I did. I started all over again. I wrote it as an adult paranormal romance instead of a young adult paranormal romance. And I submitted it once again to traditional publishers. And again, I got the same rejection over and over again, telling me, yes, sorry, but we don't want the book. We don't want it. It doesn't fit our guidelines. We don't want the book. Sorry. Hope to submit again in the future. Something like that. So in retrospect, I was kind of getting pretty upset about it. I did literary agents, I did publishers for both this young adult, when it was young adult, and when it was adult, and I was not getting anywhere. So in the midst of it, while I was walking to my job, I ended up thinking about self-publishing. At the time, I was like, I was entertaining the notion of a vanity press. Yes, I admit it. I was entertaining that notion. Vanity presses are still a bad idea. I'll probably talk about it in a later video, though. But I entertained the notion, and I was just like, hold on, let me see if I can do some research. And I did some research, and come to find out, I stumbled across Amazon self-publishing platform, the Amazon KDP, Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing. And in the midst of it, I did some more research, and I found out there were at least 2 authors that use Amazon KDP in order to self-publish their work, and they ended up making a lot of money for it. But with me personally, it's not about making money. It was about me wanting my voice to be heard. Wanting my voice to be heard, wanting to be out there, wanting people to actually read and like my stories. Which that was the main goal for me, because technically I already have a job. I'm currently working as a toddler teacher at a daycare center. That's my full-time job. So basically, I mean, if I made money off of it, that would be absolutely fantastic. But that's not what the real goal was for me at that time. I just really wanted to get my work out into the world and have readers to read it and tell me what they think about it. So I did my research, and I decided that I was going to go with Amazon KDP. So in the midst of it, I ended up reworking the book, turning it into, this was around the time that it became from The Electric Eel Bandit to Enormous Revenge. So I reworked the book. Then I said, okay, did some more research. They said that I really needed to find an editor because of the fact that a lot of writers, once they reach the self-editing stage, they get to what I would like to call the unseen eye. What does that mean? The unseen eye is when a writer self-edits the book so much, reads it so many times, that they start to get used to the actual story to a point where they don't see no flaws in it whatsoever. It's absolutely perfect. I don't see nothing wrong with it. I've rewritten it I don't know how many times. It's great. It's perfect. I'm ready to publish. But, and I guess I was in that state. I was in that state at one point with this book. So, but then I said, okay, let's see what I can do when it comes to having another pair of eyes see the work that I so beautifully crafted together. So I ended up looking through the classified ads of a magazine called the Romance Writers Report, because I'm part of the organization called the Romance Writers of America, which is an organization that supports romance writers, aspiring romance writers, with resources and other materials to help romance writers continue to publish in the field or start to publish in the field, in addition to romance readers and things along that nature. I'll talk about that more in another video. But anyway, so I looked up the classified ads in the Romance Writers Report, and I found this editor, and her name was Judy Roth, and so I sent my work to her, and I said I was interested in finding an editor for my work. And another reason why I needed an editor was because of the fact that at the time I was interested in this contest. I don't know, in hindsight, that was back in 2009, I don't know which contest it was, but I was like, okay, if I get this editor to edit these certain amount of pages and within a certain amount of time, and I can send it to a contest, then maybe I'll get noticed. But unfortunately, I let the contest deadline get past me, and I said I really didn't care at this point because I was just looking for an editor to look at my work and see if I can just, after that, just take it from there. So that's what I did. I hired an editor to edit my work, and from then on, I researched some more about self-publishing and things along that nature, and I was kind of like a learn as I went process. I established a website. I didn't know nothing about a mailing list, but eventually I figured out how to do a mailing list. And to this day, I'm still learning how to do stuff. I'm very different. When it came to the covers, I used Canva. I did not use a professional cover designer. Why? Because of the fact that I could not afford a cover designer at that particular time, because I had spent a lot of money when it came to the actual editing process, that the editing, the website, and just trying to develop my author's platform, that I did not have enough money left over in order to hire a professional cover designer. So these, yes, I'll admit it was through Canva. So I said I was going to do Canva images until I'm able to make enough money on my investment of my books, whereas I can hire a professional cover designer. But as of right now, I'm pretty happy with the books that I have. So, long story short, I hired an editor, developed my writer's platform, and around January of 2019, I officially published my first book on Amazon. And I have to tell you, it was an amazing experience. To be able to know that your book is out there for the world to see was a pretty awesome experience. So at first it was an ebook, and then I formatted it, learned the formatting for how to do a print book, created a print book for Amazon. Yay! And I gotta admit, this was pretty exciting, again, because then I got to actually hold a book in my hand. The book in my hands. Yay! So I got to hold the book in my hands. This was an incredible moment. I mean, I literally carried this book everywhere that I went, to my job, everywhere I went, friend's house, whatever it was. I carried this book with me everywhere that I went. And I was like, oh my God, that just felt so great. And then at the time that I was editing The Enormous Revenge, I was in the second draft of Enormous Fate. So Enormous Fate was already written out before Enormous Revenge was published, because back then I thought I was going to have a traditional publisher, and I wanted to be ready for them in case they said, oh, do you have other projects? Yes, I have other projects. I have this, and I have Enormous Fate. That was it. So in the midst of it, went through the same process again. Hired Judy Roth in order to edit my work again. So in the midst of it, and then in October of 2019, this baby came out into the world.
It's 7 o'clock.
Sorry about that. What the? Sorry about that. My camera clicked off. Anyway, this baby came out into the world, Enormous Fate. So it was an exciting experience. Still had a ways to learn. Could have did a book launch. Didn't do a book launch for either of these books. Did not do a book launch for a Gibson newsletter 2019. This was the third book that I had published on Amazon. This is specifically for Amazon. So if anybody's interested, like I said, I'll drop the link down below. But this was specifically for Amazon. And these two, after I did the 90-day thing, I actually did it for 120 days on Amazon, where it was exclusive to Amazon. With the ebooks, I ended up distributing worldwide to draft to digital and all that stuff. So, and then when I published the paperback version to the books, I did the expanded distribution, but then I clicked it off so it can be distributed worldwide through Lulu, through Amazon, things along that nature. So, so that's where it ends. That was my whole entire journey for Enormous Fate and Enormous Revenge. I did my introduction. My name is Dominique Gibson. I have a full-time job, but in the midst of it, on evenings and weekends, I try my best to do. We'll try. I do write my paranormal romance series, and my nonfiction book comes out once a year. But the paranormal romance series, my goal is to try to publish at least 2 books a year. Although next year it will probably be 3 books a year, but we'll see. Okay. Anyway, this was an introductory video to my YouTube channel. Like I stated, I will be sure to add the links below so that if you want to find out more information about me and my work, I'll include my author website in addition to all the links that you can find my books. This has been an awesome video. I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.